Well, hey there, everyone. It's Mrs. Asaro, and I am here to teach your class how to write a personal narrative. In this video lesson, we are going to be working on your rough draft. Before we get started, I'd just like to introduce myself to you. I'm Mrs. Asaro, and I have an online teaching store called All-in-One Middle School. I was a teacher for over 34 years. Teaching language arts was and is my passion. The goal of this lesson is to write a rough draft of a personal narrative. Narrative writing is a whole process, so be sure to also look for the next video called Personal Narrative Writing Part 2, where we will make some meaningful revisions such as dialogue, internal monologue, figurative language, and things like that. This presentation, along with the guided notes, is available to print in my TPT store. Be sure to see the link in the video description. If you are using the guided notes, you should fill them in when you see this icon. If you are not using the guided notes, just be sure to have some paper or your computer available so you can write as you're watching. If your teacher lets you work with a partner, you will turn and talk in certain portions. I hope you find it helpful. Let's dive in. Let's talk first about a mentor text. It's always a good idea to have a mentor text to refer to when you're learning new skills. It doesn't always have to be a text, though. Sometimes songs are a great way to learn new skills for writing. For this lesson, we will examine the song Love Story by Taylor Swift. Your teacher may prefer that you use a different mentor text. If so, when you take notes, just substitute in what your teacher tells you to use. Pause my video and click on Love Story. It's about 4 minutes long. While you are listening, think about the basic plot elements: setting, characters, conflict, solution, etc. Also listen for what you think is the most important moment in the song. The link is in the video description. I've also provided a link to the lyrics if you need them. We will discuss the video a bit later on in the slideshow. So pause my video and give Love Story a listen. So, why is personal narrative writing important? Well, there is no doubt that you have read and enjoyed stories and movies. These are narratives as they tell a story. Aside from being fun to do, writing narratives is something that you will need to do at least a few times in your academic career. Writing personal narratives is a good way to start with narrative writing. Since it is personal, you'll find it easier than starting a story from scratch because your personal experiences lead to good narrative writing. So, writing your personal narrative, let's get on board. When you write a personal narrative, think of it as a piece of art. You'll want beautiful components to tell your story in the most interesting way. Today's goal is to write a rough draft of a personal narrative. You'll want to focus on just one important event. Before we move along any further, we're going to review plot elements. Your guided notes icon is up here, so if you're using them, now is the time to jot your notes. Whenever you are writing a story, it's important to have a good understanding of plot line. The plot line is the sequence of events in a story, and good stories follow this model. There's an exposition where you introduce the characters, setting, and problem. The rising action is when the tension rises and the character tries and fails to solve the problem. That's usually the bulk of the story. The climax, or the turning point, as it's sometimes called, is the intense point in the book. Everything will be different from this point on for the main character. In the falling actions, these are the events after the climax that wrap up any loose ends of the story. For the resolution, there is some closure or resolution for the characters. I do have an entire video on plot structure, so if you need more detail, you can head over to that. So now you're going to try it. Think about the song Love Story. Turn and talk and review each element of the plot line. If you are using guided notes, fill them in as well. So pause my video and turn and talk. All right, step one for writing a personal narrative is your brainstorming. Right now, we're going to begin the process and work through it together. Before you begin your personal narrative, you'll want to do some brainstorming. Coming up with moments that truly matter to you will take a little time and effort. You will work on gathering some ideas based on important people, places, and events so that you will get something that is worth writing about. As we go through this lesson, please remember that one of the most important things you can do is to write about just one moment, not an entire event. We will get into that more later, but it is worth mentioning now. Note that your events can be happy, sad, exciting. You can try for different emotions to see what feels right for you. So now you're going to try it. You're going to turn and talk and come up with some ideas for each column of the chart. You can brainstorm your ideas and fill in your guided notes. The examples in the rows should be connected. I did an example for you. So I have special people, special places, and special events. For people, I chose my grandmother, a place, my grandparents' house, and the event, Thanksgiving. So they're all kind of interconnected. So you're going to pause and turn and talk and fill in this chart for some people in your life that are special, the places that are associated with them, and the event. Step 2 in personal narrative writing is to do a quick write. Okay, you're going to want to select one of the events from your chart. Then, and very importantly, you'll want to make sure that you have what I'm going to be calling a so what moment in the story, meaning it must be a meaningful moment. For example, you don't want to simply write a story about a Thanksgiving dinner. That will not answer the question of so what. So, in other words, many people get in the car, they travel, they go to their grandmother's house, they have a Thanksgiving dinner, they have turkey dessert, they watch a football game. That kind of stuff, while it's important in your life, is not going to make a great narrative. We need a so what moment, okay? So maybe one Thanksgiving, you noticed that your grandmother's memory was fading because she forgot how to make the stuffing. That is a worthy story. When you do a quick write, it is different from a rough draft. The idea is to write for 10 minutes and just keep writing. Write whatever comes to your mind. Don't worry about grammar or spelling, and don't even worry about the order of events. Just keep writing for the entire 10 minutes. Okay? Even if you're kind of stalling, maybe if you're writing about that Thanksgiving dinner, you could even write the gravy on the oven was bubbling, or my cousins were fighting in the other room. Even if you feel like it's not making sense, put in anything you can think about in regards to that moment. So now you're going to try it. You're going to turn and tell your partner what your story is and what your so what factor is. Then you'll complete a quick write. Remember, write for 10 minutes about anything that comes to mind. I did an example for you. My topic, Thanksgiving at my grandma's. My so what moment is when I noticed her memory was fading. Here's my quick write. Last Thanksgiving, I realized something was really wrong with Grandma. She always makes the best stuffing, like the kind everyone fights over, even Uncle Mike, who says he doesn't like stuffing. She always did it from memory, no recipe, just throwing things together like magic. But last year, she stood in the kitchen with a frown, holding a bag of bread cubes, just staring at them. I asked her what was wrong, and she kind of shook her head and laughed a little. I just forgot what comes next, she said. That was weird. She never forgot. I reminded her about the onions and celery, and she nodded. But then she asked where the sage was, even though it was right in front of her. It was upsetting. Mom came in and saw what was happening. She took over. Grandma didn't argue. That was the scariest part. She just sat down. She never sat down when she was cooking. Later, when we ate, the stuffing tasted different. Not bad, but just not like hers. I kept thinking about how she didn't make it and how she didn't even seem to care. It was like something had been taken away, but nobody wanted to say it out loud. I don't know why I remember that so much, but I do. So pause my video, set your timer for 10 minutes. There's paper provided in your guided notes, or you can work in your notebook. Go ahead and pause my video. Step 3 for writing your personal narrative is the what's the moment portion. So as we said before, our narrative should be about a so what moment. Again, that means that it has a significant meaning. When you write this personal narrative, your focus will be on one moment, not an entire string of ordinary events. I'm going to repeat that. Not an entire string of ordinary events. You will, of course, include some of the ordinary parts, but the focus is on the so what moment. This is a bit tricky, and it will take some focus on your part. Think about what you realized from the experience. That's what's really going to help you, okay? That's a really good hint to think about what you realized from the experience. And here's a few examples. So this is the side that says, do not do this, which is a string of ordinary events, but to do this, your one significant moment. The first one, when I went on a Ferris wheel. A lot of kids in elementary school will write about something like that. You know, I got my ticket, I stood in line, I got aboard. And it's like kind of a so what? Who cares, right? The one significant moment, though, was when you were on top of the biggest hill and realized that you still want and need your mom. Another one, the day I got my puppy. You don't just want to write about, we got up, we got in the car, we drove, I saw my dog. That would be a string of very ordinary events. But the significant moment could be when your puppy curled up in your lap and you realized that you had a new best friend. And my last example, the school dance. Don't just write about all these things that happened. You want to focus in on that one moment, perhaps when a group of your friends came in together and you realized that they didn't include you. So using the word realized here is going to help you a lot. Before you try it, I'm going to go over a little bit of this incorrect example. I'm not going to read the entire thing. It's a bit long, but I have it for you in case you want it. This is an example of writing about a string of events. So if you went back to slide 9, where I did that quick write, I was focusing more on the so what moment, where I realized that my grandmother's memory was fading. Here's an example of what not to do. Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday because I get to eat a lot of food and see my family. This morning, Mom woke me up early to help get ready. I had to set the table and make sure we had everything packed to take to Grandma's house. My little brother Jake was running around in his pajamas and Mom kept telling him to get dressed, but he ignored her. Finally, we got in the car and drove to Grandma's. It smelled so good. Okay, so there's like a lot of information here. And there's a little moment when Grandma was looking at the stuffing and saying she can't remember how to make it. Then we went into all of this other kind of ordinary stuff where the grandpa says a prayer, they pile up their plate, the cousins were playing, they were watching TV, and the focus is not completely on the grandmother in her memory, okay? Now you're going to try it. You're going to turn and talk and remind your partner about your so what moment. If you need to change it, now is the time. Tell your partner what you are planning to focus on using the bullet points below to guide you. Let your partner give you any advice. Then do the same for your partner. Finally, you'll fill in your guided notes. Okay, so you're going to focus on these 3 things. What is your so what moment? Why is it important? What are 3 details that you want to include in your personal narrative? Pause my video and turn and talk. Step 4 for your personal narrative is your theme. One of the most important components of your personal narrative is that it should have a strong theme. The theme is the message that the author is trying to convey. Theme is usually inferred and not stated outright. For example, one of the themes in Love Story is that true love will always prevail, right? Even when somebody's against it. The theme of our Thanksgiving story is that it is important to hold on to special moments because you never know when they will be gone forever. If you need more info, you could check out my lesson on theme. I will link it for you in the video description because I have an entire lesson on it. But here are some common themes. Part of growing up is accepting yourself and seeing yourself clearly. You can find hope after tragedy. Too much power causes corruption. Friends can be the family that we never had. Most people struggle in one way or another in school. So now you're going to try it. Turn and talk and come up with 3 possible themes for your personal narrative. Be sure that it is a message that you will want the audience to understand after reading your personal narrative. Brainstorm your ideas and fill in your guided notes. So you're going to brainstorm 3 possible themes for your personal narrative. Pause my video and turn and talk. Okay, step 5 is the big one. This is your rough draft. At this point, you're going to try to write your rough draft. I'd recommend typing this in a document on your computer. This way, it's going to make it a lot easier to make changes when we go back and do revisions in the next lesson. However, I did provide paper in your guided notes to do this, or you can write in a notebook if you prefer. You're going to do your best to follow the plot line and think about the theme. You can also use some of your ideas from your quick write, but remember, focus on your so what moment. If you're stuck coming up with the beginning, try beginning with dialogue. That might get the ball rolling for you. When you are done, you can go to my next video lesson, which is to make some meaningful revisions. In the guided notes, I also included an example of a rough draft so you can see how it differs a bit from the quick write. There's more detail in it. Everything is in order and it's really focused on that small moment. So you're going to pause my video and then you are going to work on your rough draft. And at this point, that's a wrap. Be sure to tune in for more Teach My Class episodes, especially the one where you will make revisions of your personal narrative. You can also check out First Chapter Friday on my YouTube channel, where I'll read the first chapters of my favorite middle school novels. Hope to see you soon.